Coming at you from Scratchable Studio. It's that time again to rage across the internet. It's your very favorite World of the Apocalypse podcast. As always, I'm your host, Porter. Sit across from me, our very own Daniel M. Tyson.
Hey, everybody.
The M is for man you do not want to ask. To my left, it's another type of M entirely. It's good to see you.
Hello.
And to my right, it's the J of the C, Mr. CJ himself. How we doing?
Howdy, y'all. Doing good.
It's like Aquaman, but like way better.
Well, way better, yeah.
How we doing, everybody?
Doing great
Pretty
now.
good.
Doing good.
And to those of you at home, welcome to Rage Across the Internet. As mentioned before, it's your Werewolf the Apocalypse podcast, the show where we go over the various topics of the game for both the storyteller player alike. Welcome if today is your first show. If it's not, it's good to see you again. Have a seat.
Have a seat.
That's right. Not that way, but I can understand why you would.
Man, you do not want to ask.
There's so many things I could say right
There is so many things, definitely.
and it's
Yep.
just not going
There's so many
to.
things we could say. There's so many things everybody on the Discords could say.
Which we're actually off, just off a backer hangout night.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yep, end of the
Always
month.
is.
Yep, end of the month, or in this case, the beginning, for the first.
Yeah, it was the first, but it was January's.
Right. Well, we try
Rewards.
to do those hangout nights the last weekend of the month. But if the last,
It all depends on what day of the week it is, too.
right, because it's always a Saturday.
Right.
So, like for February's backer night will actually be March 1st for the same reason.
Same exact reason, yes. Yeah, and being it was January's rewards, that meant birthday rewards.
Well, let's make that make sense.
Yeah, both of
'cause
both of our birthdays are in January.
Right. So instead of a random, and it really doesn't matter, honestly.
No, it doesn't.
I pick random stuff every month, and it's guaranteed to be a repeat in January, and we pick from the Hall of Fame.
It's one of those, like, how self-indulgent do we want to be?
Exactly. Like, really, I could do it every month. It's fine. But we're just making an excuse.
Yes.
But no, it was a good time, as always.
Yes, always good time. Hanging out with the backers is fun. Getting to just relax for a little bit, watch some shitty movies. Shitty in their own way, at least.
Which, we're bringing up backers. Which, normally, I don't know, we like to do that kind of at random points because people will skip it and hear it. But we bring it up this early because it is going to be relevant to the show. The backer rewards go out at the beginning of the following month. I do that because I want to make sure that anyone who wants to go to our Ko-Fi and support us to be eligible for those rewards, they have the whole month to do that.
Right.
So if you show up on the 31st and sign up, you still get the rewards from that month.
Yep.
No, that's why I do it this way.
Yes.
I'm making sure you have all of the time. And so the rewards went out last night after the movies. And one of those rewards for our Moon Silver tier is the NPC of the Month Club. And that's relevant this month.
Yes.
That said, if you want to back us, if you want to show your support, you can get us at our Ko-Fi, ko-fi.com/rageacrosstheinternet. Anything you could give, we're very grateful for. We know the times have been tough. We know your money's... Look, we respect your time. We respect your money. It's a real thing. But if you're in a position where you can, help us out, it would mean the world. And if you're not, we totally understand. And you can help us out other ways, please. Likes, subscribes, thumbs up, word of mouth, good reviews. All of that helps.
All of it.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening on YouTube and they don't get enough love, thank you for our YouTube listeners. And please make sure you hit the subscribe, hit the thumbs up.
All of the stuff.
Yeah, it's the same stuff, but now I'm calling you guys out.
Yeah.
And also thank you.
Yes.
It's the unsung heroes that listen through our YouTube channel.
It's odd that like whenever we get like new members in Discord. Yeah, I hear you through YouTube. Oh, okay.
Like, so you're one of the five.
You're one of the five. Well, it used to be five, and then it quickly grew. I was very surprised.
More is better, so please more. But yeah thank you.
I was just going to say, I also sometimes listen on YouTube, so I've talked to a few people in some of the comments before.
Yes, you have. There's a few.
Mm-hmm. Feels good.
It does.
Good to see. I love seeing our community grow.
And sometimes I see Lars make his comment, and I'm like, damn it, Lars.
Like, okay, fine. We love Lars.
So we do. He's our guy. But
yep, he's our guy.
Yeah, he's helped out on several occasions. So yes, big time. Thank you.
Well, I think of Firefly, actually.
Oh,
in terms of Lars, specifically the episode "Safe." Yeah. Cut her down. She's a witch. Yeah, but she's our witch. So cut her the hell down.
Okay. Yep.
Isn't that a fun shout out just for him?
Oh man, it's so much fun.
No, but he'll sneak a comment in every now and then.
I saw that. Yeah. I don't always check.
Half the time it's like a reference to something that we said on Discord the previous week or something. So it's apropos of nothing.
Right. I don't always check the comments and stuff because I'll put the week's episode up on YouTube and it goes out. Our normal episodes will go up on Tuesday. The YouTube one will go up on Friday. That's just how it goes.
Little inside baseball for you guys.
Yep. So it's like I don't always see them, but when I do, and I see him, like, hey, there's Lars again.
No, it's buddy. No, right. But see, I always see him because I always have our podcast email up.
Yes.
Which rageacrosspodcast@gmail.com. If you have anything to say, you can get to us there. I mean, you can also get to us through the Discord or through the website, but rageacrosstheinternet.com.
.com.
We're going to have to stop doing it. There's no enthusiasm. It's supposed to be like an echo, like .com.
I'm so used to it being the third person there.
I am supposed to be the second. Okay, I didn't realize.
It's too late now.
I was also trying to be third.
And now we've put a hat on it, and that's fun too.
Yeah,
and Danny gets to decide how much of this airs, but that's fun.
Or all.
Right. No, but of course, I mean, that's... So, like, I see them when they pop up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I try to respond to most of them. We see your comments, though. We do see all of your comments, and that's nice, too. Mm-hmm. The thing, though, was, and this is relevant, we quick aside for the Ko-Fi and all that, and that's great. But we bring that up because today, today we're going to talk about villains. We're going to show about the antagonist today, and it just so happens that the NPC of the month for January was an antagonist. So we'll be talking a little bit about that. We'll be talking about a few other things. But before we do, we have a little segment that we love and you are maybe fond of called This Week in Bullshit.
Maybe fun.
It's the time of the show where we talk about things that aren't Werewolf the Apocalypse and kind of connect with you and each other on a level that's not werewolf. So, Danny, why don't you kick us off?
I know people are looking forward to the pop culture journey and the weaning into the anime stuff. We're getting there. It's not there yet. Just there's been shit happening. I just got the new one from Porter. I haven't watched it yet, so we'll get there. But
yep. No, this is a bye week because, full disclosure, we just got done filming that episode.
Right.
So he's known about Spirited Away for like an hour and a half.
Exactly. Thank you. But I want to talk about a game, and I'll start off by talking that I was not really that much of a fan of roguelike games before. I don't mind watching them. Like I've watched you play and several times the Vampire Hunter one.
Oh, Vampire Survivors.
Vampire Survivors, thank you. I don't mind that. Like, they just never really been my style game. Watching, I don't mind. It's never a thing. Not really a big deal.
I think it's because you've never played, but that's not relevant.
Good point. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Splintered Fate is fucking awesome.
It's true.
And it used to be the Switch exclusive and is now moved over to Steam. So I think it's only those two platforms.
Oddly, yeah.
At the moment, yeah. I think they're planning to release it on consoles later, but
Okay,
nothing's been set in stone yet.
that's fair. But it being a roguelike was a little, I don't want to say like daunting. It's never been my thing, but like I'm enjoying the shit out of it. I'm not that great at roguelikes in general, but it's a Ninja Turtle thing. Everyone knows my love for the Ninja Turtles. It's just part of my personality. But this game is fucking amazing. It's so much fun. Like I got my favorite, Donnie. He's always been my favorite, so I like using him. But I'm not doing so well. Let's move over to Mikey and then use Mikey's stuff. Like, oh, I can see where this build can come in to help Mikey better than it would with Donnie. I love playing the game. It's a lot of fun.
So,
Danny has discovered video games.
yes. Really, I was about to say, this is actually secretly part of his pop culture journey, because now he's learned about video games.
Yeah.
Yes, he's learned about video games.
It's funny because
It's not Halo.
Oh man, Halo.
I liked Halo.
See, you're
No,
not helping.
I played Halo as well a long time ago.
It was a long time ago, yes.
So you're learning about a greater world of gaming out there.
Yes.
You know, and I
Beyond
think
Halo.
right, and I think you really you didn't realize what you did, but you put the nail right in the head because you're like, I don't like roguelites, and then you just spent the next 5 minutes gushing about them.
I didn't say I didn't like
Yes.
roguelites.
So what it was, you were like, it's not my type of game. It clearly is because you've been gushing. What it is
Ninja Turtles.
you hate new things, and anything that you're not familiar with is bad.
I'm just gonna shut my mouth now.
He's afraid of confirming this.
No, I'm confirming this by shutting my mouth.
Right. Which is why we're working to fix this. We're working to broaden your horizon. So it's really part of your pop culture journey. You see how that worked? The fun thing about that is
Exactly how that works.
right, there's a DLC coming on the 5th of February, so it'll be out by the time this airs.
Oh, fuck yeah.
With Casey Jones.
Fuck yeah.
So we made that news as well. Look at what happened.
Hell yeah. I wonder which character, like how they're gonna, because Mikey's like he's a little bit more quicker, but it's a little less damage.
We'll figure it out. Super Evil Megacorp did a great job with the game, so... And I just like saying that name.
Yeah,
That's why I worked that in, yeah. I had a thing the other day.
Mm-hmm.
Music isn't something that comes up very often. And this is going to segue, but I've been Discord, is what happens.
Shocking, right?
Yeah, right. And, God, I forget who I was talking to now, which is a shame because it was only a couple of days ago. But someone brought up something that reminded me of the Elton John album, The Tumbleweed Connection.
Ah, yes.
It's a good fucking album. It's one of those ones that people don't
know too much about. They haven't heard of.
Yeah, they think Elton John. They got a few things, but no, this is back in this is the 70s. This was him.
Mm-hmm.
This is a rock and roll album. I hate to tell you, he did that. But it's a good. So I started listening to that, and then when that was over, through Spotify, which you can listen to us through. So hey, and so I let it do its suggestion thing and let it go. And so it's put together this really nice eclectic classic rock playlist for me.
Nice.
And I'm going through it all day, and it's bouncing around, 70s and the 80s and the 90s. It's keeping in that sweet spot, which is great for me. And Bon Jovi comes on.
I know where you're going.
Oh, it goes farther than you think. There's an epilogue to all of this, so
boy.
Stick with me. And it's the song Always. Now, I don't know if you guys are familiar with this song, but I can't handle this song. Now, I don't mean I get too emotional. I mean, I do, but the emotion is hilarious.
Yes, it ensues very quickly.
Because it's one of the, it's your standard, hair metal ballad.
Oh yeah, it's an absolute ballad.
It's peak 90s Bon Jovi, but the opening lyrics are so fifth grade breakup.
It's excellent.
And he pouts them out. This Romeo is bleeding, but you can't see his blood. And I die laughing every time. I can't handle it. I'm like, oh my fucking God.
It does. It sounds like he wrote this song when he was in 5th grade.
Right. Janie Miller broke up with him and pushed his fruit cup onto the floor at lunch. And this is how he dealt with it. And how he delivers the line.
Oh my God.
Every time it makes me laugh. To different levels of hilarity, depending on your mood.
Mm-hmm.
And so I hear this and I just lose my shit. And then I started thinking about it. I remember this video. And the guy in the video is one of those ones where it's like a story. They're doing the narrative through the whole video.
Yeah.
Oh my God, to get the girl back.
Oh, that's 80s, 90s music videos.
Yeah, there's a lot of them. And so this guy, I had his name, and then I forgot it, and now I'm going to half-ass it. It's like Johnny Nosebleed or something. His nose is in his last name, all right?
Okay.
I'm not saying he has a big nose. It's just it's part of his last name. I didn't do it.
I remember you telling me this, yeah.
And I remember this guy specifically because he was on a show called Dead at 21.
Okay.
And this was an early run MTV drama. And I remember it was like 1993.
As you say, when MTV was still doing videos.
Right. This was still in the era of MTV they still played music. They were dipping their feet into dramatic content. They hadn't perfected the Real World yet. Mm-hmm. I think it was still Real World. I think maybe Real World 3 was airing. Okay. Which is really where after that it went crazy.
Oh, yeah.
So it was still the good era of MTV. It was, people were just watching it. It was just on all day.
Yeah.
And I remember really liking this show, Dead at 21. I remember it being awesome. I was 13. So I can't verify this, right? Because it's one of those early shows that disappeared off from the world.
You're just giving the perspective. I get it.
Right. I just want to make that clear. And the premise of it was Johnny Nosebleed was... It had was part of a government experiment. He was experimented on by the government to make him super intelligent. He was part of this group. Put a chip in his head or something. This is I'm and the project was canceled, and so there's an agent sent to get rid of all of the people that were part of it. And so, he's on the run from the agent man, and the thing of it is everyone who was part of this project, their heads would explode when they turned 21. Hence, Dead at 21. Not only is I'm not listening, but she's listening to the Bon Jovi video right now, isn't she?
No, you said Agent Man, and so...
Secret Agent Man. Okay.
Agent Man. I was just trying not to interrupt with random singing.
Fair enough. No, I appreciate. Okay.
Agent Man.
That's hilarious. But so this is the premise of that show. He's on the run, and they're trying to find the doctor to pull the chip out of his head so he doesn't explode at 21, and they're dodging the agent who's trying to kill him. Okay. But now that
why would he explode at 21?
This is a side effect to the project. It's everyone who was part of it died at 21.
Yeah, the chip had a bomb in it or something.
Yeah, something. It would fry or something. I don't know. But Dead at 21, that's why it's called that. It's okay, well, this thing has disappeared from the world, so I can't verify if it's any good or not. I just have this vague memory. And this bothers me because we've met. So I go on the internet and start searching, and I find, the first season.
But there's more than one season?
There were 2 seasons.
Okay.
I learned that, too. So, of course, I start watching it.
Of course.
Because I need to know.
Well, yeah.
I've started down this rabbit hole thanks to fucking Bon Jovi's Always.
How bad is it?
It's not great.
No, I'm not surprised.
It's an early 90s show. And, there's a premise there.
Uh-huh.
Right? It just was... I don't want to say it was ahead of its time. Because it wasn't. It wasn't ready yet.
So it was behind its time.
It was actually behind its time. It needed to wait another 10 years before trying it. But the thing that's amazing, two things I noticed about. Number one, Adam Scott is in it. Briefly. He's not like a star.
Okay,
but
whoa.
like a 20-year-old or whatever Adam Scott is in this
Whoa.
thing.
And Em is currently looking up who Adam Scott is.
Parks and Rec.
Every time you, thank you. I see his face now. Yep, he's on Parks and Rec. Every time they mention a celebrity, I have to look it up because I have no space in my brain for celebrity names.
I try to help though, because I'm aware of it. So it's fun to see like a young Adam Scott already.
That's crazy, yeah.
He was also in Boy Meets World.
Shut up, seriously? I don't remember that.
Oh yeah, Adam Scott was in Boy Meets World. He had a role. He was the school bully when they were in high school. Like the second one.
Okay.
That's nuts because he looks like he's 15. He's not, but he looks like the same. Kind of like Michael J. Fox was like 17 for 30 years and then he turned 60.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that.
That's pretty fucking gross.
But the other thing about that at 21, and I know now why this has never been re-released anywhere.
Oh.
Is because of the soundtrack is all licensed and it's all popular music for the time, and it is constant.
Really?
Like, here's a scene, and they're going to play Living on the Edge. And they're going to do this scene. And now we're going to play Blind Melon for a scene. And we're going to play the Crash Test Dummies for a scene. And here's a chase scene. Let's use Firestarter.
Okay.
Whoa.
So it was,
like it was
one of those, they were taking advantage of the MTV license.
Yes.
I was just going to say the same thing.
It was an MTV production. So yeah, they took full advantage to the point that if they were to put this on DVD, the entire soundtrack would have to be changed or they would have to dump millions into an episode.
And they're not about to do that on something they barely got 2 seasons out of.
Exactly. That 4 people remember and care about, and not even care about. I don't care about it.
I was going to say, so you can't be care about it, just remember.
Yeah, I don't even care about it. I just was curious and had to find out, and now we're talking about it.
That's hilarious.
Dead at 21.
Funny. Yep.
We'll put the link in the show notes.
One of my favorite, like, not great games, but similar to like the bad movies. We watch a bad movie night. Like it's great for what it is in some way, whether it's making fun of it or being like, okay, there was an attempt made. One of my favorite games like that actually was taken off Steam and everywhere for a similar reason.
Okay.
It's Alpha Protocol. So it's like an early sort of like James Bond-esque super secret agent. I think it came out before games like Splinter Cell and stuff, but it's totally Splinter Cell before Splinter Cell like got real big for a while. And like that whole style, and there's one scene where you're going and like fighting the Russian mob in Russia at the time, and you're about to go fight their leader, who is this. I distinctly and like vividly remember this because little CJ played this when it came out, or when he first found it. It was like this was one of the most badass fight scenes ever. Because it's this dude in like a big garish sequin pink jacket, like spiked up blonde hair, classic 90s style, who would, run around with 2 little Uzis just shooting you around the map occasionally. And every now and then, the camera will just stop, fully focus on him as he pulls a knife to do a line of coke, while Video Killed the Radio Star is playing in the background.
Oh, that is perfect.
Love that.
Like the entire fight.
That's beautiful.
That is amazing.
But because of that song, as soon as the license rights ran out, the studio died. I think the game killed the studio because it just wasn't a hit, and this was one of those things of like, we're trying something, we're going to put a lot of money into it, it's got to sell well.
How was that not a hit? I want to play this game now, right?
What's it called?
Like you would have sold one today.
Which you can get it off GOG now. Okay. Because they replaced the song so they can actually sell it again. But yeah, I'll see if I can find a clip of the fight with the original song, because it is like peak action spy movie fight with that in the background, and the whole thing is set up for it. It's like, this is one of those things I vividly remember.
It was like,
and I went to go find it the other day, and then I looked up, it's been gone for like 2 years because of the legal troubles behind that license.
Damn.
Not surprised. Upsetting, but not surprised.
That does remind me real quick is because of the soundtrack. Is I watched a body cam video like a week or so ago where Girls Just Want to Have Fun was playing on the cops radio during the high speed chase. That's amazing.
That is perfect.
That's all. That's all I had. I was just like, dude, I couldn't. I'm like, yeah, no, that's
Yep.
Beautiful.
the drunk lady driving with no tire. There's sparks flying. Girls just want to have like, oh my god. This is part of a
Soundtrack.
show. Right?
What'd you have, Em?
I've been listening to a book that Porter got us all for, a book on tape that Porter got us all for Christmas, Nosferatu. And I'm a little bit into it. I haven't finished it yet, like CJ has, but it's really good so far.
No,
There was some scenes in there that were really yucking me out at first. I was like, okay, this is nasty. I like it. I like scary things that are like just a little disturbing. That's like my favorite genre of like book and movies. I like things to be a little disturbing. So I was like, oh, this is gross. Nice. And then it kind of went into sci-fi, and I was like, all right, I'm into it, because it went from like nasty and gross into a little bit of sci-fi. It's pretty good.
Now I want to clarify a little bit here, is because Nosferatu, but it's not spelled. It's not spelled properly.
It's not vampire.
It's spelled in the license plate sort of way.
Yeah. NOS 42?
NOS 4A2.
Yep.
482, yeah.
4A2.
Yeah, NOS 4A2.
Yep.
That's hilarious.
NOS 4A2.
It's just important because people are going to be like, oh, like the movie that just came out, Nosferatu, Count Orlok. No, not that.
Or
It's
It's
not
not-
license plate kind of way.
Well, it's
No,
because it is
It actually
a
is
license
in
plate.
reference to a license plate in
Yeah.
the book.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
Yeah.
Which is
one
why
of the
it's-
characters drives a vehicle with that license plate on it. NOS
Yeah.
4A2.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not being illiterate. It's part of the story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And
the
he-
only illiterate
like,
one is me. Got it.
Well, I think you guys know, especially, since we've been on Marvel Rivals for our game team, is I do not contribute to the illiteracy of others. So if someone puts like a 3 instead of an E in their name, I will say 3.
Yeah.
I'm not going to pretend that's a letter.
Right. No, I get it.
I pretend it's a letter.
I need you to learn how to read. So I'm gonna say it the way it's spelled and make you feel stupid.
Yeah. Hey,
I want you to improve.
Right. D34D. That's not how that is going right now.
Well, it's the 34'd.
And D34.
Yeah.
So you go, hey, to 34'd.
Yeah.
So instead, I'm like, that's not how you spell dead, sir. That says to 34'd.
Yeah.
I can't help you.
But
I think you're clever, and it reminds me of old chat rooms, so I'm with it.
I know that you're not clever, and I can understand the old chat room thing, but it's not clever. It's illiteracy, and we need to do better.
Those two things don't have to be mutually
You can't play werewolf if you can't read the game about the game. So I need you to be able to read.
Oh,
You need to have a higher literacy rate than some of your elders.
AOL Instant Messenger.
But if you can't, text to speech is a thing.
Make sure to put SSJ before your name so everyone knows. Anyway. Nosferatu, though, I'm glad you've been digging it.
Yeah.
CJ, I know you were a fan.
Oh, yeah. I blitzed through that book as fast as possible. Like, that replaced all of the podcasts I listened to for a while.
That feels good, by the way. That's a successful gift.
Yeah.
Well, I first learned of it through, there was a show. They did a show,
Okay.
which I think was on Amazon. I think was an Amazon exclusive. I'm not going to sign that in blood, but I believe. I know I watched it. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, then maybe I'll watch it. I don't know about reading it, but I'll
Well,
watch
you're
it.
not going to read it. That's why I didn't give you the book. Like I already knew.
That's fair.
I got you Splintered Fate instead.
Yes, you did. And it was fantastic. Did
I
I mention how
know
much I
this
love
is
that
audience.
game?
I know my audience. I know my fucking people. Come
Yes,
on.
you do.
It's fucking. But yeah, Nosferatu was by Joe Hill, Stephen King's kid. And
okay,
yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, there's some trivia.
I did not know that connection.
Yeah. See, I actually learned about him through Lock and Key, not the show, the comic.
Oh,
It's a good book. It's a like it has an end. It's a finite series, so you can just read all of it and walk away. I don't know if they revived it or not, but that doesn't matter. You had your first story. Netflix did do an adaptation of it, and don't watch it.
I watched the first season. It wasn't bad.
But see, it's also not good because they young adulted it.
Yes.
They
I watched it.
See, did you?
Yeah.
See, you weren't impressed. I'm seeing you try.
It was definitely for a younger crowd.
Yes.
The idea was there. The execution wasn't bad, but it was definitely directed for a younger crowd. So,
and that was the problem with the show because they dumbed it down.
Directed it for a younger crowd.
Yes. They're like, this is a great fucking premise and there's some brutal fucking scenes and some really cool ideas and good shit here. Let's take all of that away so that a 12-year-old can watch it.
Yeah, it's one of those things of, I remember I watched the Netflix show. I talked to Porter about it. He told me it was a comic first. I found the comic, read through the first chapter, or the first issue. Yeah, no, already that's infinitely better. It makes it's a lot less like mental leaps to make some of this stuff work. And once again, it's also a lot darker. But in a not needlessly darker.
I didn't know you did that. I'm excited for that. When did this happen?
Yeah.
A while ago, like a year ago.
I might have to get back on you about that. That's exciting. I get fucking poor CJ. I introduced him to so much. There's shit I'm holding off on because I know I put enough on his plate already. I'm like that Italian mother. It's like, you have to keep eating. No. Is this enough pasta? No, you need more pasta. You're a growing boy. Fucking that's me. I'm like, here, take this content. Just fucking all of it. It's 12 seasons. You got it in a week. Fucking poor man.
I particularly enjoyed Joe Hill's writing style. I really enjoyed Stephen King, right? And I was like, at a random bookstore, and I was just looking, and I was having trouble finding a book I hadn't read yet, and an old man walked up to me, and he was just like, "Oh, what are you looking for?" He didn't even work there, but he saw me looking. I was like, "Oh, I'm looking for a new horror book to read. I usually like Stephen King, but I've read all the ones here at the used bookstore that I go to." He was like, "Well, have you read anything from his son?" And I was like, "I didn't realize he had a son." He was like, "Yeah, come here." And he showed me some of the books, and he's like, "I recently read this one. It was pretty good. You might like this one as well." And I picked one up, and I've been trying to get through some of the books he's written now. I've even recommended one to Porter, which I think you did read, right? Or at least listen to.
I bought it. I didn't read it yet. And by read, I mean listen to the book on tape. But I did buy it based on the recommendation in the Joe Hill. So I'll get there. Yeah. But I want to finish Nosferatu first. And
you're not done with it either.
No, we're at the same spot, pretty much. I'm a little further.
Nice.
But yeah, with Lock and Key, I found the hardcover collection, the first book, the hardcover, at a comic store while I was on vacation. And the first volume was called Welcome to Lovecraft. So never hearing about it before, and it was on display as a feature thing, so it was on a sale, I think. And I'm like, I thought it was just an adaptation of some Lovecraft stories. So I'm like, oh, this will be a neat thing to pick up. And then I fucking ate it up and got the rest of the goddamn series. And then the show's doesn't do it justice. But that was my intro to Joe Hill, and then Heart-Shaped Box, and then so Nosferatu. But we bring it up because we're doing a villain show. I mean, it's This Week in Bullshit stuff anyway, right? It's just stuff we're enjoying, and but how it's a coincidence because it's a great example of Nosferatu in terms of how to do villains.
Yeah.
So I think we're going to segue our way along.
So out of This Week in Bullshit into the show.
Into the show. A story is only...
These segues lines up.
Exactly. Now, a story is only as good as its characters. And so the strength of a villain, or lack thereof, can really fuck you up. What one can look to classic rogues galleries like Batman or Spider-Man, and see how the good use of villain can really elevate a character, really elevate a story, or a poorly used villain, like say Jared Leto, can ruin it.
Mercy.
You look at Mark Hamill or Heath Ledger or Jack Nicholson, and then you look at Jared Leto, and you're a little upset inside, and we understand that. Oh. How dare they?
Yeah.
I'm so hurt.
But yes, a good villain is a really good way to get your players invested and taking them down.
Exactly.
And feel good when they do.
But I really like Jared Leto as the Joker.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Like, what do you like about him? Exactly.
Pretty.
I saw Scarface. He had green hair.
The Floor of Knives was an interesting shot.
I'll actually give you that, but
Yeah,
that had nothing to do with his acting.
exactly.
Sorry, I'm still a little dead inside.
What a fun example to start with, huh?
Because everyone knows what we're talking about.
Right. Well, again, the Joker is such an iconic character and
Yes.
being played by so many talented actors and Jared Leto.
And so many not so talented.
And they're not all the same,
True.
but they're all good villains, with the exception.
Definitely. Well, no, I think he was actually, in a roundabout way, he was a great villain. He wasn't a Batman villain. He was an audience villain.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was still a killer, just he killed joy. In fact, in a roundabout way, that's more effective than the other Jokers.
Yeah. I mean, it makes it more memorable.
Because fucking none of the other ones killed Batman. But Jared Leto certainly killed my enjoyment of fucking everything he was in that suit. Man, he's really taking a beating.
Yeah.
I'm not sorry. This is just indulgent at this point.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's funny.
Bullshit.
All right. Three people are super mad. Go on, CJ.
I was gonna say maybe we should start to classify what makes a good villain. Some of the aspects of it.
I like the part where he might be the villain of the story, but he's the hero of his own journey.
Well, that's
Handsome Jacks.
Sure. I mean, that's a good point. I forget who said it first. I may not know who said it first, but who most famously said it. I don't remember who it was, and I'm even going to just paraphrase this because of it. But it's, the hero wants to save the villain. He wants to save everybody, but he wants to save the villain for the villain's own good. The villain wants to defeat the hero for the villain's own good.
I like that.
It's the why doesn't Batman just kill the Joker? He wants to save the Joker in some way.
Well, and there's also the him crossing the line, but that confuses the issue.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea is that the villain is out ultimately for the good of the villain. He's about him, where the hero is traditionally actually about,
The good of the people.
which includes, where the villain is out for the good of him, and if that helps the rest of the world, that's fine. Because you have situations like Lex Luthor.
Yes.
Or Doctor Doom, which is my favorite, because Doom is just probably right.
I'll take it.
Like, he runs his own country, and is he a bit tyrannical? Well, a bit, but there's no crime in Latveria.
Right.
There's no pollution in Latveria.
And it's pretty successful.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like he wants to conquer the world, and maybe the world should just let him.
Right. Maybe they would be better off. I mean, look how well they're doing so far.
Latveria's fine.
Well, Latveria doesn't exist.
It also goes back to he's the hero of his story.
Exactly. Yeah, Doom is about Doom.
The case, which is the case for most villains. There's very few times that a villain is just the most evil bastard possible without a reason.
Well, and that's the thing, right? I mean, it goes to we talk about getting on a cardboard town, which if those of you who are new to that concept or, or you're just joining us now, cardboard town is the act of a two-dimensional world, a flat, boring world around you. I love to use the example of like Final Fantasy, specifically Final Fantasy, like the early ones.
Okay.
Where they only had the memory for an NPC to use one line. You can buy potions in the item shop.
Or you should go to the castle to talk to X.
Right.
And that's it.
And so you don't want to write Cardboard Town. You want your NPCs to not just stand around waiting to tell you a useful bit of information. You want them to be living, breathing people. Cardboard Town. Got to get out of Cardboard Town.
You can have a simple character, but not a flat character.
And that becomes the difference between that mustache. I don't want to say mustache one. It's so cliche. I'm not going to say it for the rest of the show.
Evil for the sake of evil?
Evil for the sake of evil. The over-the-top, Dirk Dastardly. We're going to tie the girl to the train tracks. And that's my motivation, is just evil. Versus motivation, thought, feeling. There's a reason behind what you're doing. Even if the players don't know, you as the storyteller need to know.
Right.
Because it's going to inform how things are done and will inform your writing also. And I maybe should hold this, but I'm not gonna. Just cause, right?
It's fine.
I think a great example of motivation informing character at that point is Thanos. Because the whole world saw fucking Endgame. Right. I don't have to explain this. But when you look at Thanos from the comics versus Thanos from the movies, there is a disconnect, and it's a problem.
It's a huge disconnect.
Yes. They kind of fucked it up. And I stand by that. Now, you can go, I've only known the movies, and that's fine. You go, well, I liked Thanos a lot. Well, of course you did.
Yeah.
Of course you did, and that's the problem. Because they changed his motivations.
Yeah.
In the movies, you heard Brolin give the rationale. Thanos' rationale is there's overpopulation, planets die out, people starve to death. It's a worse place because there's not enough resources versus people in the cosmos. So if we cut that by half, everyone will thrive.
Yep.
Everyone who made it. And he's not wrong.
But that's not who Thanos was.
Right, but this is the thing. This is the Thanos they present.
Yes.
So he's not...
In theory... He's not wrong.
No, he's not. He's the guy making it changes him. He's the guy making the hard choice for the benefit of the cosmos.
Yes.
The greater good for just life in general.
That ends justify the means.
Right. He's making the tough choice. And when it was over, what did he do? He retired, just like he said. He's like, I'm not going to command I don't want to control everything. This will make everything better. For the people who make it. But you can't make an omelet. I'm making the hard choice.
Yes.
He wasn't wrong. In the comics, Thanos, known as the Mad Titan,
right? They left that part entirely out.
Is in love with death.
Yes.
Who has a personification. And so he did what he did to impress a girl.
Oh, no.
And I mean, that's I'm paraphrasing that. Right.
But I know
that's very close though.
Yes.
Yeah. Another storyline to show a similar thing is apparently there's a guy in the DC universe that Thanos shows up every year to make his birthday hell.
That is not in the DC universe, but
or in the comics,
Yes. Yeah, I that's weird. But
it's one of those things of it's just to show death that he can make this guy's life absolutely a living hell and everything. It's one of those things of he's trying to impress a girl.
Right. So he kills half of everyone is a tribute to death. Because he's crazy.
The Mad Titan.
He's evil and crazy, and there's no arguing that point. So you take someone who's objectively bad.
Yeah, and you give him a good aspect to him.
You kind of made him a hero from a certain standpoint.
Yeah.
Okay, it sucks if your cousin died, but
just what?
He has a leg to stand on.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things that I think make both versions at least good to decent villains.
Yeah,
It's just absolutely crazy trying to accomplish his goal of, wooing over the girl. The other one,
different.
The ends justify the means. Both valid villains.
Yeah, different motivations for a villain, but still a villain. Well, one's they're thinking that they're doing something good for the world, but in reality it's maybe a little unethical, and that's what makes him a villain. While the other hand, he's got this obsession that he is fixed upon. Both of those are ways to give a villain motivation.
They absolutely are. One's a bit more ambiguous, which isn't wrong. Mm-hmm. Certainly, I mean, it's a way to do it. But when you compare the two,
it's a completely different character.
Exactly. And we're already in Werewolf, just steeped in ambiguity, because you have to leave your human morality at the door because you're not playing a human. There are different rules on a different scale. Right? Mm-hmm. So now it's morally gray versus morally gray.
Sometimes the answer is just go and murder everything in sight.
Sometimes it is.
Who's the villain at that point?
Right. So, and you can play in that sandbox, but don't just play in that sandbox. You know what I mean? Yeah. There has to be...
Should have their own motivations and beliefs, and sense of right and wrong is different than, evil. It is quote evil.
But no, again, there's room to play there, but you don't want to live there.
Right.
Yeah.
Go back to the cardboard down thing then.
Of course, there's plenty of room for these morally these ambiguous, but also there needs to be room and there needs to be a place for the bad guy to just be the bad guy.
Correct.
So you can be the hero. And even if you're in a morally, because again, you're walking those gray areas as Garu, just in general, or, it happens just as a consequence of that perspective shift in being Garu versus our human morality. So I think it's all the more important to make sure that your villains, more often than not, again, nothing here is always. Right. That's not how it works.
There's exceptions always, but...
Yeah, but you want to make sure that there's evil that you are, you're not just running up against, well, from my perspective, I'm the good guy. And there's a way you can look at that outside of just me where that's okay.
An example I could point to is, once again, going with Handsome Jack from Borderlands. In his game, he believes he's the hero. His goals are not wrong. Yes, his methods are. But, by the end of the game, his story is wrapped up, finished. If they made Borderlands 3 about Handsome Jack's return and him being the same kind of villain, that would have ultimately made that game probably worse. Because it would have made the character worse.
I don't know.
Because there's
I mean, what they replaced him with was...
Yeah. I'm assuming Borderlands 3 doesn't exist right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're not comparing to real Borderlands 3. You're just saying pretend world. Okay.
Yeah, just hypothetical.
Yeah, okay.
Just hypothetical.
Instead
with Handsome Jack being done, if they tried to capture that again with the morally ambiguous villain, it would be a little stale.
Here's an example of... I mean, that's such a great example of a villain.
Yes.
I mean, Handsome Jack's fucking top 10, let's be clear.
Yep.
And you look at some of the qualities that made him that way, is how charismatic the character is.
I think the charisma was one of probably the biggest parts of it.
Well, certainly, but also as a factor is how he was used, where he interacted with the characters, but sparingly. Another example of this is the World of Warcraft during the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. Now, little background there. The original Warcraft 3, which is the predecessor to World of Warcraft, was all about the character Arthas becoming the Lich King. It wasn't all about, but this was a major...
plot point.
Yeah, he was the Lich King, and this was a big deal for fans of the franchise because this expansion came out and we're finally going to square off against Arthas. Oh, holy shit. We can't wait to get a piece of this dickhole. Yeah. And so you go to these new zones, to these new storylines, and they decided when they're writing this thing to have him show up and interact with the player a lot, much like how Handsome Jack did, right? Mm-hmm. You get the messages from Jack through the course of the game, kind of taunting you every now and then, being
big taunts,
fun, and of course that takes a change through a point. But with Wrath of the Lich King, Arthas kept showing up, like, you know, his image would show up before the boss of the dungeon. Mm-hmm. You know, and they'd have a conversation, and you'd see a little bit of that scene, you know, as you go in. You know, it was okay. This is justifying him appearing, or him showing up in person and, like, hitting you with a beam to immobilize you and then walking away. He ended up looking like Yosemite Sam. They used him so much that it was cliche as shit, and you were just bored of him being here. Also, they made him really fat. Like, they ballooned his armor. Like, they wanted to make it was big, thick armor, but it just made him look like he'd been sitting on the throne eating Whoppers all day for the last 6 years.
I mean, it sounds fantastic, but...
I mean, it sounds tasty. I could go for a Whopper.
As the example of, like, using that villain a little too much for what they're trying to do.
Well, exactly. And then to having the continuous and entire expansion of getting away. Narrowly escaping, or him showing up and flexing, you're such a threat, I'm going to hit you with the stand still for 5 minutes beam and then leave. It's like, why don't you just swing the sword, asshole? Now, at the end of the expansion, they tried to justify it.
Which, that bugs me.
Well, I mean, I understand the justification, because it was part of his plan to weed out the strongest people and then turn them undead. So it's like, okay, I get it. I get how you've justified this, but that doesn't change the fact that you've hurt the story this entire time.
Yeah.
It wasn't what a twist, because it happened so often. It was just shitty and boring. And I'm just left wanting a Whopper. Meanwhile, you have Jack, who, you know, started kind of pithy and joking around. I mean, it started with him trying to kill you and failing. That's how Borderlands 2 begins. Mm-hmm. And he's pithy and fun. And I have a diamond horse, was going to name him after you, but I thought Shit for Brains wasn't a great name. You know,
One of my favorite lines of the game.
You know, stuff like. But then as you get later into the game, and I don't know how I feel about spoiling Borderlands 2. I'm super torn on that.
No,
but you get to the certain point around Bunker.
Yeah,
I'll do that.
Okay,
and you notice, and CJ brought this up not too long ago. If you remember this, right? You're like, how he stops taunting you.
Yeah.
He stops telling jokes. In fact, but directly
there's
from the
a
source.
point in the game. Yeah, there's a point in the game where, leading up to a specific event, he's been getting, he's always been jokey, he's always been taunting, he's always been, pointing fun at you, even to the whole, point of the world of his, learning to play the violin just for a specific gag, and it being horrible. But after that certain point, he stops telling more jokes. He stops being taunting, and it becomes more threats and promises. Until eventually, it's no longer threats. It's no longer promises. It's him being almost deadpan serious. Until a very specific point shows up, it happens. All you get is a suck from Jack at that moment before, big stuff happens. And then a little bit after that, you don't hear from him. You don't hear any music. You don't hear anything. There is not a single joke until you start getting to the final arc, until a couple minutes later. And it's just having that whole transition. He starts off, he's the funny guy. He's the charismatic guy. He told me to go jump off a cliff at some point. Maybe I'll actually do it to see what happens, because I'll just respawn. To eventually he starts getting actually threatening, actually intimidating, until you get to the almost you're talking to a serial killer. Somebody who has probably cut out a few people's hearts with how serious and intense he's getting.
Starts to show his true colors there for a minute.
Mm-hmm. And I think the whole thing, as you go through it, if you're not paying attention, it's easy to miss it. But it speaks really well to the progression of the villain in his relationship with the hero, and how that will affect, well, I guess both parties. Is the guy who's playing, but
I love that slow transition, though.
You need to stop. This is your last warning.
Yep.
Turn around and go home.
Yeah.
You know?
The slow transition from the funny guy to the jokes to no. Last warning.
Mm-hmm.
It's such a huge part of the game. And I love it.
Or like one of his quotes that I thought was just like super eerie when he said it. I don't remember exactly what it is, but like, if you want to beat somebody, you don't need to just kill them. You just need to kill everybody that they love.
And this is a great. I mean, no, we're talking about motivation. We're talking about what's a good villain. And this is the thing too, is how the motivation matters. We talk about comic Thanos versus movie Thanos. We talk about Jack here. You know, we could talk about Kefka from Final Fantasy VI. I don't want to right now, but he's another great villain. Well, exactly. Like, I know I'd be alone on that one, so I'm not gonna. But, you know, this all factors in when you're making a villain, is what we're talking about here. You know, ideally, and again, we're talking about your returning villain. Not your fodder that it's going to be dead at the end of the story.
Right. Not the monster of the week.
Right. It doesn't matter. You know, we're talking about the guy you're going to see again. The guy you want to get away so that your players can take down a few stories later or in the next chronicle.
Yeah, damn it.
And I've actually had one of those pay off not too long ago.
Yeah.
With a dancer that I had in the Firehawk games here on the server. He was set up as goon number 2 in a little just encounter where they're going to go save a first changer who just got picked up. You know, these 2 spirals took out the first changer, rolled her up in a carpet, put her in her van, and was getting ready to take him to the hive. It's 2 brothers. And, you know, so it's set up as just like, yeah, no, this is a spiral fight. This is the player's like first time against an actual threat. And I had it set up for one of them to get away. Be it he runs when the other one gets to low health. He, you know, does something to vanish, pulls some underhanded tactic, but ultimately he's going to get away. To come back later when it's right to get revenge for them killing his twin brother. And the way he did it was using one of the spiral gifts that I found where it allows you to make copious amounts of fake blood. So the alpha of the pack went to go slash him across the throat. He fell to the ground and just started a fountain of blood, acting like he's dying. So the alpha got close enough or started to like leave him thinking, oh, he's dead. Only for the alpha to get put on death's door and missing an arm.
You see, that's awesome.
And when he showed back up, it wasn't because he was showing back up to hunt them down because that was his goal the entire time. No, he was working on another project. He just caught their scent. And he's like, okay, this can wait. And he showed up after a little bit more shenanigans to find the pack with the alpha's dried out leathered hand hanging from a necklace.
It's a big necklace. Or a tiny hand. Did the alpha have T-Rex arms?
You have to ask Wrath that. But he was in Krynos.
I was going to say, sorry, Wrath.
Yeah, like how we 3 of us were looking for a way to fucking drop the Wrath reference. Yeah, I knew who he is.
But yeah, and once again, it was set up as a simple monster of the week villain. But the fact that he was going to come back and he had that little bit more motivation and that deeper connection to the pack.
And sometimes
made him a character they're going to remember for a while.
Yes. And
yeah.
And I think that's often a great way to establish your recurring characters is a personal connection.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You know, I look to Danny
Vermilion.
Well, I was going to start with Drake.
Okay.
Not Drake from the Discord, but Drake Riversong.
Right, Drake Riversong.
Who was your character Jaeger's father.
Correct.
Who eventually Christ, I don't remember his Spiral name now. The bad storyteller, right?
Give me a second.
But who danced the Spiral and actually became a major villain. In fact, the final villain, as it turns out, of that entire game.
Coincidence at that point.
But he was the villain of a Chronicle.
He was the villain of the Chronicle, yes.
And not the one he first appeared in.
Ludzeroth.
Ludzeroth, thank you.
You're welcome.
It's a Spiral. It was a nonsense thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter what the
But I mean,
Spiral name.
But no, there that was. Right, so there was that personal connection that was Jaeger's father.
Yeah.
Who they already didn't have a good relationship, and then it turns out, hey, look, not only am I a Spiral, but I am a prophesized Spiral who can decode these old fucking rites.
And I'm important now.
And cause some problems.
Yep.
And has a familial connection to one of the players.
Right, so it's personal. You know, that is built-in motivation to want your characters or your players to get a piece of this guy.
Right.
Another good way to do that is through fear.
Yes. You can use that one with Vermilion.
Well, you're not gonna.
Okay.
Is I think my first recurring antagonist was a King Gaiafo, whose weapon of choice was a chainsaw with a fetished silver chain. So a silver chainsaw, because a regular one isn't enough.
Course.
Right.
Yeah. It's gotta be silver.
Right.
That's
Holy crap.
Oh my god.
Right, and nothing you can do about it.
Yep.
But so that alone is a scary image.
Yeah.
Right. And then you have him decimate some NPCs in a large scale battlefield. Kill some people that your pack knows.
They're familiar with.
You want that revenge. But also, even if he doesn't know those characters, you've seen the amount of destruction and devastation this character can cause.
Yep, that's what I was going to say.
And then you find yourself in a position where he's taking an interest. Case in point, one of his quirks is a Spiral, and this was early Storyteller, was that he had a pack, but when you joined his pack, he decapitated you and put your skull in a duffel bag. I mean, he'd treat it and prepare it, and because now you're a member of his pack, and as that skull, he will talk to you and interact with you, and hear your voice or pretend he hears your voice.
Yeah, his pack is always with him.
Yes, and so in this case, one of that bag becomes his Achilles heel, which is important for a villain to have. It was because of the raw physical power that this guy had, right? The damage this chainsaw could do, that's absurd.
You still need the weakness.
So yeah, you have to give a weakness. So, the deal with this character is you didn't physically beat him. It's kind of like Magneto. You don't beat Magneto. No, you foil Magneto's plan. So you had that Achilles heel. So, they'd run into him. And what do they do is you hold the bag hostage. And that would be the solution.
He's not going to do anything if he thinks his pack is in danger.
Exactly.
Because he's delusional.
Right, but there you go. That's why this works.
Yes.
And so one story, the Glasswalker of the pack uses Trick Shot to snap the strap on the gym bag while it was around Kane's, he's got it like a duffel bag. So he breaks the strap. The bag falls from a bit of a height, and one of the skulls shatters.
Now he's pissed.
Uh-oh.
You have killed one of his packmates, and now this is personal.
Yep.
So this is how he becomes a recurring antagonist. And it got to the point where I could describe them walking through the hardware department of a Sears. And if I pointed out the chainsaw, they would get nervous. All you had to do. Little things like that, right?
Yeah.
And I think there's a few lessons in there for you, in terms of, make sure there's a way to beat the guy, right?
Yeah. I mean, plus the personal...
the personal angle. And at that point, it's not personal for the pack. Yeah. It's personal for the antagonist now.
Right. Whereas now, I mean, obviously not now, but like any time after in Jaeger's story, if it would have kept going, anytime there's any kind of crime scene where there just happens to be maybe a little bit more blood than usual, I automatically got nervous. For Jaeger. Because of Vermilion. But
who we haven't talked about yet.
Right.
Despite your desperate desire to.
He's begging.
I know. And I'm not going to give him what he wants yet.
No, that's fine. I'm just... I'm throwing it in there just so you understand. Yeah. But yeah, it's the same concept.
And with the making it personal, the other thing that does is it gives them a reason to be a reoccurring.
Yes.
Because it is possible that, like, in certain stories, if this specific event never happened, why would the heroes ever encounter the villains?
Exactly.
And in this case, hey, maybe the pack survives their first run-in with Kane, and Kane gets, goes after somebody else that takes him to, like, the opposite side of the country. Well, congratulations, the pack has survived Kane and never has to encounter him.
Right.
But now if they break that skull or they take the pack hostage...
Well, now he's coming
now got
for
a
you.
Reason.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that changes a lot of things, because you could totally run into him by random happenstance again, like the next Chronicle or 2 Chronicles later.
Yeah.
Because that's how that can work sometimes. We see shows, we read stories. This shit, it's how that works. But to have him make it personal, that also changes the pacing of a story or of an overall chronicle. I mean, like, it changes things, because now he's not just going to show up once every great while.
Right.
You killed a pack mate. This is personal. I'm coming at you, and I'm coming at you hard.
Yep.
That's a 3 or 4 consecutive. That's an arc.
Yeah.
And if you want to really cook it, let him get away that time too. But you have to allow your players the absolution. You have to let them get their final showdown.
Yep.
So as attached as you are to the character, understand that ultimately you are just building for a final showdown. It's like playing with a cat, like dangling a string and not letting the cat get the string. The cat will fuck off.
Yep.
Your players will fuck off if you don't let them,
Yeah, it gets to the point where they won't care anymore.
Right. You can't dangle the enemy forever.
Yep.
You can you can build that connection and build that desire to destroy this man, but you're going to have to let them do it eventually. And you also, you have examples like, and again, I bring up, we talked earlier about the NPC of the month. It wasn't just a shill.
Right.
But it just so happens this was another one of my Black Spirals.
And you don't do it that often. But to put an antagonist in there for an NPC, I think is important. Every so often, because antagonists have their own motivations too. So to see this character, and I know this character, I've played it as Jaeger against this character before.
Yep.
But it wasn't that much. It was I think it was 1, 2 stories?
Not just one.
It was just one story. But now to know who that character is, like, behind the scenes, and to see the motivations of that character, it's such a cool thing to me. Because, like, that he was a serious threat. That was more than just a random bad guy.
Like, had he met you earlier,
right,
he could have been a Chronicle boss.
Could have,
yeah. Could have.
And in this case, the character in question, his name is Riot.
Cool name.
Thank you. He was, and this thing is, oftentimes, especially when we talk about Black Spirals, either you were born a Spiral, or you were at some point converted. You were dragged down to the Temple Obscura, or you got too overzealous. So it's either But usually, if you're born there, fine. But, usually there's a story there to how you went bad. Mm-hmm. And the thing about Riot...
There's a road to hell.
Yeah, exactly. Is he started on the road to hell. He didn't start as a Black Spiral. He wasn't Black Spiral Kin.
No.
He was from a long line of Bane Tenders. Or rather, he had an ancestor who was a Bane Tender. Who... Yeah, I don't want to do the whole thing. That's not what we're here for.
Right, because then you're giving away the NPC.
A little bit, yeah. But who was influenced by an item that had a Bane in it. Essentially from birth.
Yeah.
So you had a guy who faked his way through things.
Became a member of the Garter Nation.
Yep. Learned about Bane tending. With no intention of staying with the Garter Nation.
Right.
Because since he was 4 years old, the devil, if you will, has been talking to him, and that's his imaginary friend.
Yep.
This was the long haul.
Yeah, the long con.
The long con. This was the long con. Yeah.
Learned what he needed to. Him and his new pack went out and to dance the spiral, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, only him. Surprise, motherfuckers!
Where are we going, Riot? Oh, the spirits say we have to go here. It's Destiny. We got to go here.
Destiny.
Guy would like us to be here.
It's your destiny.
And we have to go kill the enemy. They are going to be here. He's not lying.
Right? Just to his enemy,
Yeah.
But when I put that character together, I loved the idea of someone who had that level of belief in faith and was so sure that he would bring himself undercover to the nation to steal knowledge to then dance the spiral like he had planned to from Jump Street.
Yep.
But this is someone who was not a spiral kin. He didn't grow up in this, This is just him in his faith and his wanting to release his imaginary friend from its prison.
Yep. This is one of those, he wasn't necessarily born evil, but pretty damn close.
Right.
He was born with... I can't even say that.
He was born normal, but he got evil pretty quickly.
He was corrupted pretty fast afterwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me of my first werewolf game I played with Strides. The Chronicle villain, the one at the very end that ended everything, had been taunting my character for at least months before we actually encountered it the second time. The first time we encountered it, clearly too big of a boss. We had to get the hell out of there as fast as we could. But because of a flaw I took, I couldn't stop staring.
Okay.
Curiosity, it's one of my favorite flaws. But I couldn't stop staring at it. I failed my willpower to stop staring at it, but I kept staring. And then later on that evening, he described bugs crawling under my character's skin. And I was hearing taunts and voices that were trying to turn me against my pack, and among other things. And so my character is certifiably going insane, and none of my pack is listening to me. They do not believe me. I am trying to rip off my skin because there's things crawling underneath it. Thinking back on it, I might have been a little worm tainted.
Somebody stared into the abyss a little too long.
Yeah, I think I stared a little too long. I think I might have been a little worm tainted. Nobody checked. Just now it ran into my head. I might have been a little worm tainted. But for several different stories leading up to that big bad fight, it was whispering in my ear, telling me of the things that were to come and that were to happen. There was going to be there was a big earthquake, and I knew it was going to happen before it was going to happen because it was taunting me in my head, telling me I was the thing that was causing this. and I'm like freaking out. I'm like, guys, this is bad. This is bad. And they're like, we don't know what you're talking about. And all of a sudden, here it is.
I love that. And this is actually a great example, too, of another way to use antagonists to make it personal with a particular character. You know, don't be afraid to single out a member of a group with something like that. Just make sure you're not making that person the main character.
Right.
Just give them a little... You can give someone a spotlight without making them the main character.
Yeah.
And ideally, you want to give everyone the spotlight here and there.
So you did that with...
In the interest of fairness.
Yeah,
you know?
you absolutely did that with Ludsroth. Yes, that was my father, but as a pack, we all had a personal...
Well, ideally, but at the same time, while I had you with the Ludsroth angle, you know, Tom had his arc with finding his family and Lennox.
Right.
You know, and I had planned on, you know, afterward, next would have been time for Jessica with the legacy of Wyatt, you know, her uncle Wyatt.
Right.
And
so there was this spotlight,
everyone was getting their time, you know.
But we all had a personal, you know, quote unquote connection. So it was just as big of it was almost of a big deal to Tom as it was to me.
Well, I think, and you're going to love this, I think a better example of that would be the character Vermilion.
What was that?
Yeah, see, and then finally, I'm going to help you. Which, again, another one of my recurring villains. This is an example of a character where you guys had a personal investment.
Yes.
But he did not.
No, he did not. He did not give a shit.
Right.
And if he did, there was reasons behind it that had nothing to do with us.
You were angry and embarrassed because he used you.
Yes.
He manipulated you and he made you look stupid, the whole pack.
And then took my arm.
And then killed. Well, he didn't take your arm. Yes, he did.
Yes, he did.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Fair enough. But maybe that was part of it.
Right.
But he, used you guys. He manipulated you guys. He made you look stupid and he killed a bunch of your friends.
Yeah.
They were new friends, but he killed all of them.
Yep.
You know,
he was M. Bison.
You wanted that.
Yes.
But for him, he was just Tuesday.
He was just
doing a job. You didn't matter to him.
Nope.
And when you met him again, he kind of remembered you.
Yeah.
This is kind of remembered you. If he wouldn't have taken your arm, if you would have showed up with two arms, he wouldn't have remembered you guys.
I was gonna say, yeah. I was gonna ask that. I was like, if he didn't take the arm, like, okay, and
I was like, oh, we met. Sorry.
Yeah.
And I will say, I do have an example of where this connection to the character is in reverse, where the villain has the deep connection with the players, but the players have no fucking idea who he is yet. Because it was... I had this idea after watching Gundam off of another Porter recommendation of the Amuro meeting Char without knowing he did, with the tire scene.
Now, before you continue, just so everyone can follow this, because I watched a blankness go over the crowd here.
Yep.
Think of it like Amuro and Char were the main antagonist and protagonist of the franchise.
Yeah.
So think of it like Luke and Vader.
okay.
Yeah.
There you go. That's all I wanted, just to give that context.
Actually, yeah, Luke and Vader is not a bad example, but it's the whole idea of, like, here's these two people who have been fighting each other, not actually knowing who each other are, since there's been some distance between them.
Right, they're all in ships and shit, right?
Yeah.
Ship, Gundam, same thing.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But eventually something happens where they cross paths, and because they have no idea who each other is, one of them helps the other out before they go their separate ways. And I loved that scene, and I had an idea for a villain where the idea is this guy is playing the long con, and the whole idea is he is getting back what was stolen from him. That being, I'm not going to go too far into it because this could be one of my games, or this could not be one of my games that is currently actively running.
I was gonna say,
But it's the whole idea This character's motivation is getting back what has been stolen from him.
It's a good thing you have two games, dude.
Yep.
So none of them know.
And that's why I'm willing to talk about this right now. And also a few others that are completely different from Werewolf, but it's one of those things. Like I can get away with just saying just enough, but yeah, something was stolen from him, and he wants it back. It just so happens the pack are involved with this, and there's been 1 or 2 times they've ran into this guy without ever knowing that there's that connection. Eventually, awesome. They will find out.
Well, I hope so.
Eventually, some of those dots will be put into place. More hints will be dropped. And this is a good way to make a sort of reoccurring villain who is a surprise reveal at the end. But Porter did have to stop me from getting too clever. Because I originally had this big grand scheme that he was going to be doing, where he'd show up a lot more.
But they'll figure it out too quickly?
No, it would make it too overly complicated. Like, why would he be doing this?
Okay.
Like, it's trying to write a genius when you're not a genius.
Fair.
So how can he have this like grand plan? Why would he have this grand plan? When this keeping it fairly simple works just as well, if not better.
And it's important sometimes is you don't need to go that far. Sometimes simple is just better. Not every fight needs to be the fate of the world. It could be the fate of the store that you like.
Yep.
And that's still personal. So it still matters.
Yes.
Like that stakes are still high because you can't get your steaks. Right? So they can't, if they kill the cook, you care about that. You eat here every day. You don't want Hop to die. You don't care about the waitress you murdered, but you don't want Hop to die.
Right. I knew you were going with it. And I care about the waitress.
Yes, we do care about the waitress. That poor gal that we made lose her job. Just.
Well, I was talking about KT.
Monster.
But I remember whenever what I had mentioned earlier with like the big bad kind of like talking into my character's ear. I remember one thing that he had said, and so I searched it within our DMs because he put it in the DMs because he didn't want everybody else to know it was happening to me. I think he genuinely wanted everybody to think I was crazy. And so, like, as I'm staring, as I failed the roll, and I am staring, and the rest of my pack is getting the heck out. He messages me and says, "And you see black swirls approaching, death and decay, and this." Sends me the image. And a flash of withering hooks of bone and flesh crawling out of your skin, and you hear, "Child of tenders, my spawn sees you." A voice of corruption, rot, blah, blah, blah. Followed by, after a little while within the game, somebody grabs me because they realize I'm not running with them. Somebody has to come back and actually grab me and carry me with them. Because I was stun locked at this. He ends it with, "I am not done with you. When your agony is at its highest, I will come and harvest it." Succulent lip smacking.
Good old strides.
Strides, you son of a bitch.
Good old strides.
You genius son of a bitch.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yep. Yeah, most of my pack, not the whole pack, but most of the pack was genuinely concerned for the health and well-being of my character Cecilia, and we're trying to knock her out of her state of just shell shock and ripping at her arms.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love it.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. It was good. It was very impactful, and it had my character on edge for that whole entire in-game year.
That's awesome.
And continuing with the theme of the show, right? We talk about villains. We can give another example, fresh off of the latest postmortem that we just got done.
The reoccurring?
Yeah. And this is the case. It's not a black spiral dancer.
Right.
And we get a little political here, not real world political,
No,
with the
fuck
character of Donovan Darkwind, who had a past with the cairn that the players were in.
Right.
And so this had nothing to do with them, but it did have to do with their home.
Yes.
So he was exiled once upon a time, and the elder that did the exiling had recently died. So he comes back with his new pack, shows up despite you were, to, under the guise of paying his respects.
Yep.
And it was really fucking thin.
Quote unquote.
Yeah, no, it was, it really what he was doing was just insulting people there and goading one of his former pack members into attacking him to justify
being able to
attacking the cairn.
Just give me a reason.
Yep. They hit us first, so now I can go back to my sept and we can declare war on these guys and attack them.
Yep.
And it's totally kosher because I was just on a goodwill mission to send my respects and I was unjustly struck.
Yep.
He's creating the problem so that he can do what he wants.
Yeah.
Yep.
He baited them. It was just bait.
Absolutely.
And this is what I would call like a mastermind type villain, one who is plotting and scheming. Again, not a spiral. This is a character that showed up even in the games here with Danny way back when, and you got to see more of his plotting and scheming.
Yes.
Yep.
Where his vengeance, his motivation is getting revenge on a particular pack. It's just not yours.
Yeah.
He's still a problem.
Crossfire.
No, of course he's a problem because he's still a threat to your home and he's a threat to characters that hopefully you care about.
Yes.
Yep.
No, but CJ just said it right. We were like us, the pack, and the players. We were just in the crossfire.
Yep. Which is an interesting spot to be.
Yep.
Because it affords you a little wiggle room.
But not much.
Right, in a different perspective. But you're still involved.
Yeah.
And you still wanted them. It's like, it's not our fight, but I want to be the one to do it anyway. I hate him. Isn't that your fight, though?
Right.
And that's fun to do sometimes, too. Or, useful things like that. To reiterate that the world does not revolve around your players.
Right. He's still Garu.
Yep. The game is about your players, but the world doesn't revolve around them.
Yeah. The point is, that guy, Donovan Darkwind, was still Garu. He wasn't a spiral.
Right.
He's still doing his work. He's just got other plans.
He's just a personal exogrind and is really good at revenge.
Yeah. He's just got other plans while in the middle of doing Gaia's work.
I mean, post-mortem, that one's old enough. I'll say it. He cut off, his enemy was Whiplash. He cut off Whiplash's hand. Not Ag, so it would regrow.
Right.
And then he took that hand and planted it on various crime scenes.
Across the country.
Like, we'll just murder this family and plant his fingerprints all over this house. Yep. So now there's a federal task force looking for Whiplash.
Mastermind.
And because of it being a federal task force looking for one of the guardians of the septs, the septs caught in the crossfire as well, because the feds are coming.
Yep.
Exactly.
They don't know where he is, but eventually. But that's a whole different thing. But that was the plan. Yep. Fucking ingenious is that shit, right?
It is awesome.
Fuck.
It's also not overly complicated.
Right, but it's clever.
Yes.
Like, who would have thought to do that?
It's clever enough, yeah. And I remember that. It was so much fun.
And that's the thing, being Garu, not using silver, that hand will grow back. That is not an aggravated wound. So he can't go, someone stole my hand and planted my fingerprints. Your hand's right there, asshole. What are you talking about? It's not like cutting off a finger and the guy's got 3 fingers. No. That dog don't hunt. I see both hands.
Yep.
Oh,
that was one of those things too, because my crazy
Yes.
Conspiracy theories.
Your conspiracy theory,
yes.
your tinfoil. You got like a special tinfoil hat when that happened.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a special gold tinfoil hat.
Yeah, that was one of the ones I remember that because you're like, Danny's either going to get it immediately or not for weeks.
Yeah.
Which one was it?
Immediately.
And what came out of his mouth was so crazy. The dot connect he made, I was in awe.
Eventually, I got it immediately.
Eventually.
But at first...
But it started with, my arm was severed and his hand was severed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a plot from the Spirals.
I'm just saying the reveal...
Fair enough.
Yes, yeah.
That was you at your tinfoily hattiest.
Yep.
That's a sentence.
It's pretty close.
Yeah.
Which I have my own favorite moment similar to that with a villain. It was a SEP that was currently having a bit of a civil war as some new managements come into play. Certain people are backing the new guy, certain people are backing the old. And at some point, I don't know how they got onto this, but they assumed one of the Sept elders who they just did not like because they didn't want to share all of their information with the brand new pack that just arrived, was secretly trying to taint and corrupt everybody in the Sept by feeding them human disguised as gumbo. And they had, I kid you not, a 3-hour post-game conspiracy session in voice chat.
That's amazing. I love it.
And I just sat there listening. And I'm like, I don't know how they got here. I don't know what did it, but like they're making a good case. It was not the case. It was
I'm starting
not the
to
case
believe
at all.
them.
And there was a mild temptation to be like, okay, do I rewrite this story just a little bit?
Like, wait, I see how they got here. Are they right? You start looking at your own notes. Like, wait, but my notes say this, but what they say, this makes sense.
That's a good point.
But my notes is not even close.
Which sometimes listen to your players' STs. You never know; they might have a interesting idea you never considered.
And let's be clear on that too. That's listen to your players, and sometimes they can, but don't do the opposite.
No, never do.
Don't do the thing where, they figured it out, so now I'm going to change it. Never do that.
No, that's
clever.
cheating.
Sure, but I feel the need to say it.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. I had a game where my players figured out the twist that was going to show up in 6 sessions on session 2.
Oof. Which sucks, but if you change it now, right, you are the bad guy. You're like not CJ is the bad guy, not in game.
Yeah,
you're the villain for real. It's just don't do that. Don't punish players for being clever. No, if they come up with something that you're like, I like that better, and you want to tweak your story that's totally different. And that's cool. And how neat is that for them to feel like I've had that happen in a more practical sense, like in combat. Mm-hmm. There was a totem quest or an opponent they fought that they chose, instead of fighting, to try to heal.
Ah, yes, I remember that story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was such a clever idea that I gave it to them, and they won the encounter a completely different way than I intended, by virtue of just being really clever. Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
But I see it as in, like, if they change it, like, they figured it out, I gotta change it now. If you do that, you change the motivation of the antagonist, and then if you change the motivation, you've changed his entire story.
Well, first of all, it's petty as shit.
That too.
Let's be clear. It's super petty.
It's not good for the story.
Right. And
ultimately, you're going to have to keep that quiet forever.
Well, also, by virtue of it, you changing it, there's a sequence break there.
Yep.
Because if you've done this right, if you've laid out this villain's plot, you can follow it as a storyteller. You can follow this plot from step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But now that you've changed it, you've gone 1, 2, 15, J, X, 12, 7. And that's no longer makes sense. It's no longer actionable. You can't follow that. So yeah, you just cheated.
But yeah, breaking the sequence like that can also, if it happens a lot, it can be a little bit discouraging. That's happened to me as a player before. I have made guesstimations on what's going to happen, and it was pretty clear that the storyteller immediately started rerouting everything, and it was both annoying and discouraging.
That's a great point. It damages trust.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, like, if your players are able to figure out the twist ahead of time. Now, note, I'm saying figure out, not guess, not just, harebrained idea, but just figure it out. If they're able to actually think through it, figure out, and they've guessed the twist, legitimately, it's a good twist. You should be able to piece together a twist before it's revealed. Otherwise, it's just... It doesn't make sense at that point.
Yeah, it also shows that you did a good job writing it and giving them hints and demonstrating what the goal is here. And now the question is, how are they going to stop it?
Exactly.
They might know it, but how are they going to stop it?
And to add to that, right? This is something I've said before. I've talked about this a few times. If you're doing a villain's plot, I definitely recommend you finding a third party you can show this to. And show the steps to make sure that it makes sense to people who aren't you.
Yeah.
Because you already know how the story goes. So you're going to put things together.
That someone might not.
Right. You already have all the pieces to the puzzle. And what you've laid out for them, your breadcrumbs might not lead that way. So let someone else take a look at it to see if it's logical, if it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're writing a mystery, if you're writing a plot, it needs to be discoverable. Otherwise, what are you doing? You're just writing kind of nonsense.
Which I've done that actually not too long ago with it's a different game entirely, but it's very investigation based. So I wrote out a connection web. Here's the big important pieces of evidence. Here's how they connect to the others. And I had 2 people in voice chat that I'm like, hey, can I run this by you real quick? What would you do if you were playing it? What actions would your characters do? Getting just a general idea. Okay, so this is happening at a hospital. Let's go check the schedule.
Yeah.
I was running it with the investigation game. And
Yes.
I was running through it, letting these 2 people that I had who were not involved in the game whatsoever, but they were giving me rough ideas of what their characters would do. Okay, a murder happened at a hospital. Let's check the schedule to see who's on call that day. Which nurses were in, which doctors were in. Get ideas of who it might be, because hey, this happened in a locked room. Well, obviously it's got to be somebody with the keys or somebody who had access to that room. And eventually they got to a point that I'm like, okay, they're missing this one crucial piece of evidence that I thought was a logical way to go, and they hit a roadblock. So I realized, I might need to introduce another piece to connect that together to make that logical jump.
And that's so great you bring that up because you're right. You want to give them the tools that they can potentially figure it out, but that doesn't mean you give them, as this is an ET where you give them the carefully laid out path of Reese's Pieces. Okay. You can and probably should skip a step here and there because there's feasibly information they wouldn't have, but you need to be able to make sure they could make a leap of logic to get them there anyway, which is also tricky as shit. And that's a great example right there of having those other people look through it and giving that feedback, let you know that it was too much of a leap. Because again, you in your head who wrote it, you already know. So
it's trying to work from the end back to the beginning.
Yes.
And making sure it can go the other way around.
It's a good call.
But yeah, and one last little bit is especially if your players ever guess your ending, there's that moment of panic.
Yeah.
If it's not like they figured it out, if it's like they guessed, they're making their call, like, so-and-so is going to be the villain the whole fucking time. If it's a guess, they're probably going to forget about it by the next session.
Or don't name your character Jean-Claude Villian.
Yeah. That's a little
Red
less
herring.
than a guess.
Right? Eats lots of orphans. That's a strange gyro name.
Yeah.
Killer of the innocent. I don't know if I can trust that guy.
Right? So what we've done here, I mean, we've given lots of actual examples.
Yeah.
Both in other media and our games themselves, which we hope has not confused the issue. We didn't do that to brag about our stuff.
No, of course not.
We were, the idea here is to give you some practical examples, some stuff that maybe will inspire, and hopefully we've done a good enough job explaining how and why those work.
Inspire is the big deal. Yeah.
And also why they impacted us so much. Like being good villain designs, they impacted the game and therefore like our characters and our experiences.
Correct.
Well, absolutely no argument here. But I think that's the thing to give some summary. You want to, obviously motivation is important, but factor in how that motivation guides the character and informs who he is. The difference is how these characters interact with your pack or your players sept, or the players' NPCs, or how they don't. All of these things can factor. I mean, we've been over it. All these things can factor in. That NPC, that enemy that doesn't realize that you're his sworn enemy, who is very confused while these cubs keep showing up. What? Get away from me, kid. What are you doing?
What do you mean?
Right, versus the guy with the ancient blood feud. And maybe that's it too. Maybe it has nothing to do with you, but it's your grandpa. Generational revenge. What up?
But yeah, there's got to be that motivation to, determine who the character is. There's got to be that goal. And there's got to be that connection. Be it directly to the players or tangentially. But there needs to be that reason for them or the villain to seek each other out.
Let design play into it. A memorable detail or two can go a long way. Be it a series of ritual scars all over Riot's chest, or a weapon in a silver chainsaw, or a particular voice in someone's head. These things matter, and they can create a lasting impression, and that's what you want. You want to build that tension, or fear. You want to build that relationship. So that you can plan that showdown with your players, and they can finally take that motherfucker down. and again, that guy doesn't have to be the big boss of Foreverton.
No,
he doesn't have to be God King Magomra. It can be a smaller scale because it's personal.
Yeah,
the guy who took your arm,
right?
He's just a spiral.
I mean, he was involved with larger shit, but he didn't need to be, did he?
No, not at all.
And that works on both the examples we've given.
Exactly. That's what makes that one fun. Because he's just another spiral. He's just a sick bastard who now I have a grudge against.
Well, he was evil.
Another example of that is fucking Vader and Luke. Vader's a villain through and through. Vader's a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
But the connection, the part that makes him a good villain in the memorable aspect of, oh, hey, it's the main character's dad. What the fuck do you do with that information now?
Well, and that becomes more relevant in the first two Star Wars. Not in the third, which is Jedi.
Yeah.
Right. Because of the relevance of the character, right? You look at the prequels, and it's because Vader is relevant to us.
Right.
He's not relevant to the greater world of Star Wars. Right. In A New Hope, Darth Vader is Grand Moff Tarkin's lackey. He's a fancy thug, but he's just a thug.
He's a thug.
Yeah.
In Empire, Darth Vader is a thug. He's got more autonomy, but he's just a thug.
Right.
He's a cog in the wheel.
Right. Now you get to Jedi, and now he's the Emperor's right hand. So he's less of a cog. He's like a bigger cog, I guess, but he's a more important one. But the fact that the scale was smaller, that's where I'm talking.
I agree.
Right, like it's personal because he's the guy who killed Obi-Wan.
Right.
Not because he's the big bad. He's the dickhole who killed Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
The Emperor is the big bad.
Right.
The Emperor's the villain.
But like even in A New Hope, Tarkin was the big bad. He wasn't an emperor yet. So he's further down the totem pole.
But it's because he killed Obi-Wan.
Right. And in an Empire, it's
There's that
because
connection.
he is Luke's father.
Yeah.
So there's the personal connection. That's why. It's not because he's the Emperor's right hand. That shit's not relevant. Who cares?
Nope.
Like, you kill Vader, nothing stops.
Right. It's not going to continue.
Yeah, the Empire's still fine. You just get the Emperor just gets a new dude. It's fine.
That's a side plot of a few what if scenarios.
Exactly. So I mean, that's again, it's why it's a great example. He's relevant because of the connection to the audience, not because of his place in the universe, in the meta of that universe.
Right.
He's not anyone important. Later, they made him important because he was important to us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which was a mistake, but that's not what we're here for.
Yeah, it's besides the point, right?
Right.
One of those sort of you're changing the story because we guess we guess the outcome.
Right.
We guess the twist.
Boba Fett's alive because a lot of people like Boba Fett.
It's not for the same reason, but it's equally as
It's the same thing.
disruptive.
Just yeah. He's important to you, so I'll bring him back. He was totally dead for 40 years. But shut up, he wasn't, because you like him a lot. There's a lesson there, I promise. I'm not just bitching.
Yeah. But yeah, and
So that's the
tons
bad
of
guy.
examples here.
Oh, yeah. And how important the bad guys are.
You need them, because everyone can't just be the gibbering madman.
Yep.
They can't just be monsters of the week. You would get everyone's going to get bored. I'm bored right now. Just
It's
saying
okay
that
with the
sentence.
occasional monster of the week,
Right.
No,
what I'm
that's
saying.
totally
The
fine.
occasional is fine.
but not all of them.
But there's a reason why shows that revolve around the monsters of the week, your Power Rangers, your Voltrons, your Thundercats, have a big bad.
Exactly. You need the balance of both. It can't just all be the big bad, because now your players lose interest and they look incompetent no matter what, because if you kill the big bad, there's nothing left.
Right.
Well, then what are we doing here? The other way around, if it's just Strings of Monster of the Week, we get bored because there's nothing greater going on. There's no greater sense of purpose or accomplishment. What are we doing here? So you got to find that balance.
Absolutely.
It's something that just comes with experience.
And keep at it. You'll get there.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I believe that's our show for the day.
That was a fun one. That was a fun one.
It was good. You know, we got to talk about Vermilion. That made you happy. We didn't get into his art, but that's okay. It's like Captain Body.
That's
Okay.
a detail to make a. That's a detail to make a twisted villain.
Yes. This very body horror. He's a sculptor. His preferred medium is flesh.
Being in Nosferatu is a good example of a twisted villain.
Yes. Yeah, we should have leaned on that more, but now the show's over.
Yeah, the show's over. And that's how we started it, so it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. It's fine.
You could check out Nosferatu and get examples.
There you go.
Yes.
Also, Scissors for the Drifter is one of my favorite concepts of all time. I just saying it, I fucking...
That sounds creepy as hell.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's the point of it.
And on that note, my friends, good show as always.
Absolutely.
Thank you all so much for listening, for tuning in, and your support means so much to us. And We will never stop being grateful for that. We will see you next week, and I'll remind you that we are all in this together. So really, let's take care of each other. Just remember that we're all just folk. Take care, and we'll see you next time. See you. Yeah, I don't even care about it. I just was curious and had to find out, and now we're talking about it.